We're glad to have you on the interview segment of the New Dawn, and this is the midweek edition. Today we want to look at peace, and let's tell you that peace is not the absence of war. It is the presence of people who make it happen, and one of those stakeholders are people in the studio will be talking to us about what we should know about global peace. And global peace, they say, starts from our communities, especially from our families. We have gentlemen in the studio. We're talking about promoting global peace. We have Dr. Michael Olufemi Shodipo, who is a project coordinator, Peace Initiative Network. You're welcome, Mr. Shodipo.
Thank you, good morning, thank you.
And also in the studio with us, we have Martin Bibbs. He is Executive Director for Global Partnerships and Impact and the co-founder of Empire Fighting Chance, Bristol, UK. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And also a woman is joining both men in the studio. Together we'll be talking about peace on the program today. She is Kelsey Paul Shantez. Welcome to the program, and we are glad to have you, all of you, in the studio, and together with my colleague Doyinsola Ogunbadewa. From now till about 10:30, we'll be talking about peace and global instances. Good morning, Doyin.
Good morning, Charity.
All right, you're welcome to the program.
Okay, let's just begin like this. Imagine a world where children can go to school freely, where you can relate with your neighbors without hassle, where you can travel to anywhere you want. This is the desire of everyone, and every nation wants peace. But it saddens one these days that this is going into extinction. So now, let's just start this way, that what does global peace mean to you beyond no war? Maybe I should start from Kelsey.
Sure, thank you, thank you. So global peace is a great question because the reason I'm here today is because we're here with the partners from Bristol and with a host from Michael, because we work with the Peace in Our Cities Network. Peace in Our Cities Network is a coalition of over 100 cities and organizations from around the world, globally, in all parts of the world, that have all committed to creating the kinds of communities that you just described, and by addressing the violence. And not just addressing violence, but creating communities that have peace within them, that have the structures of peace within them. So Abiyakuta and our partners at the Peace Initiative Network are members of this network of organizations, and also our partners in Bristol, Empire Fighting Chance, are members as well. So we've come here to learn from the example and to build global peace together.
That's great, that's great. Let's, Dr. Shodipo, say something about the question.
Global peace. I think we have to also start from the local, because everything is local, even peace also is local. And what we do at Peace Initiative Network, we commit to local peace in our communities. We work in Abeokuta, and what we do mainly is to engage young people to also see how we could also toward peace. We have a multi-stakeholders engagement, working with traditional rulers, government, the media, youth, women, because all hands must be on deck. It's not. We have to be inclusive in our work, and what we do mainly to see how peace could be translated even from home. Because in point, we were yesterday with an elder, and he was telling us that we should have a peace even from the family, because if the family is not settled, there's no way we can have even community or even national or global peace.
Okay, Martin, let's talk about the involvement of stakeholders like you in ensuring that peace is gotten from, we have it all over the communities, not only in Nigeria this time around as we're coming on a mission, but all over. We see that there are wars in nations against nations. We see that some communities do not even want to collaborate with other communities. And according to definition of peace, they say it is not the absence of war. So why do you think there are a lot of unrest when it comes to cohabiting, doing businesses together, and having people together to chart a course?
I think that's a big question, and there are lots of different answers. One of those is a lack of equity, a lack of fairness in society. So it's very difficult if you feel you're missing out, if you feel others have more than you, if you feel there's no chance of you progressing, then that can start to create division. So I guess if you feel like you're on the outside of something, then why would you try to contribute to building that thing? So one of the things that I see a lot in England is that you have a lack of opportunity. That lack of opportunity creates division. That division ultimately starts to create violence. So for me, if we can start to build from the community up, to create fairness, to create equity, to create economic opportunities, then we start to build peace.
Okay, Dr. Shodukwe, let's talk about our communities now, especially in Africa. We see that in Europe, a lot of nations, they want to show their power, and they call themselves the world power, and they want to dominate on others. But in our communities, subtly, some people do that too, and it affects the peace, especially the inner peace within our community. How do we ensure that this peace translates to the society and we have a calmer society that wants to develop?
And also that also speak to policy, because we have policy in place that talk about positive peace. I think that's a very good starting point, and where people can come together, the politicians, the religious leaders, community groups, youth, having inclusive society where people can also contribute, not only by vote, but also by having engagement with elective leaders we have in place. Either the local government, I think we have to start from the local government, and our councillors are also very close to the society. They need to have this mutual engagement, and not just only probably after elections and everything goes. So there should be a continuous engagement of the youth. We have most populations, Africa, I think we are more populated than the youth. Over 60% of the population are youth. So there's need to have this engagement, and that's what we do in Peace Initiative Network, working with young people, giving them skills, vocational skills, and also providing tools to start small-scale business. Because when you have something to do, you don't think of what others have. Just like what Martin said, there's need to have this equity, and then to also have parity in what we do. And for our government, there's also have to have this continuous engagement in at the local level and also at the national level. I think that's also to make do with peace. And not also forgetting the traditional rulers. They also have a role. They are the father of the community. And why am I talking community? Because that's where even most of the issues are. So starting from the family level, the community level, and also the state. So there's need to have this, all hands must be on deck, because government alone cannot do it. That's why everybody must be in place to also support and to see that government do the right thing.
Okay, Kesley, let's talk about strategies now. A lot of nations are seeing the Europeans, especially now we have Iran and USA displaying a lot of power and showing that they have the military, the intelligence, and showing the people that they can destroy, they can hold the hostage and all that. So what strategy do you think international bodies like the UN should play when it comes to ensuring that there are peace in the warring nations? These warring nations, if we like it or not, will affect other nations who are not even in war. So what strategy do you think unions, not only the UN, African unions too are there. So what do you think they should do? What should they put in place to ensure that warring nations stay on diplomacy or talk to themselves and it won't affect other nations?
That's also a big question, but thank you for it. And it's an important one too. So first, I think that we need to talk about inclusion in those discussions and conversations, and who has the power to shape what decisions are made. I think more so we should be learning from communities like your own, where you understand how you can navigate your own conflict together, even interpersonal, as Dr. Michael was sharing too. It starts at all levels. And those are lessons that I think as human beings, we can prioritize, even in these global conflicts as well. You're accurate in saying too, there's so much spillover from these conflicts. People are deeply affected by them. And the risk of violence affects all of us, everywhere. Not all equally though. And I think we need to commit to more peace globally. We also need to commit to more inclusion in order to find that peace. So these global bodies, I think they can learn from experts that are here locally and hear you and hear your voices. And I think we can also hopefully have more opportunities for diplomacy. I hold hope for diplomacy for peace.
Okay. Okay, now let me start from this angle that 2026 that we are now, what is the biggest threats to global peace that you can say now?
To me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I work with individuals like Martin and Michael, in part because we know that all identities matter. And so we're especially focused on youth and their roles and their identities this week while we're here in town. But in general, I think the risk of how identity is weaponized in the defense of violence and how it is manipulated by those who would seek to use violence against others is very concerning to me. I think how we combat that is understanding that we all have a multitude of identities. Anytime that we hear someone only speaking about one identity in any sort of program or online or anywhere, that's usually a reduction of identity in order to justify violence and justify racism in some cases against someone else. And so to combat it, we have to understand that we all hold multiple identities, we all have worth, we all have value. And again, to what we're focused on this week with the youth, that they also hold a multitude of identities and they should have the opportunity to be able to express those.
Okay, to Mr. Bims now, do you think there can be real peace without justice and equity?
I think it's very difficult. I think it's very difficult. I think as societies, we should be pushing for equity. We should be working with young people. We should be creating community opportunities because everything that Kelsey's just spoken about, even at the global level, is kind of mirrored, I suppose, in what happens in communities. If we don't have representation at government level, if we don't have people from communities that can work together to make change, if we don't have people that are represented, then we start to create these factions and divisions. It is possible to bring peace at community level. I've seen the work that Dr. Michael and the team are doing. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So it is possible to bring peace at community level. And once you start to do that, you start to create economic opportunities. You start to make cities safer and more prosperous. And as a result, everybody benefits.
Okay, Dr. Oshodipo, you mentioned something about, you've been talking about communities, starting with the traditional rulers and the rest now. What should be the main target, the primary target when we're talking about community peace?
I think all should be targeted because what I said, it should be inclusive in our approach. And that's what we do. We have this multi-stakeholders approach where no one is left behind. It's a whole government approach and it's a whole society approach. Because, as I said, all hands must be on deck for peace to prevail. It starts from the community, start from the, even in the city. We have to make sure that we have cities that are also very peaceful for our children to go to school without hindrance, with no fear of kidnappers. So these are what we really have to. And most of the things we also have to look at is even the role of women. I think that has been also maybe underplayed. We should not just restrict women to the kitchen or to the home. They need to also have this gender mainstreaming of efforts to see how the women can also be part of even policymakers, so that we can have more women in our elected positions. So it's not just only for them to vote, but to be part of the decision makers and to see that we promote the role of women, because they are mothers, they are wives, and they are sisters. So there's need for us to have that more role given to them. And the youth, as I said, the youth also have a very role to play, because they are, we say the future belongs to them, but in our own, we believe the future starts now. And how do you prepare for the future? Is how, when we have youth that are also empowered with skills, with knowledge, and even with attitude that has to do with not just probably all about money, amassing wealth, and how do you, like, I'll give you an example. When we are growing up in those, at least in the 70s, in the 80s, the values of Omoluabi that Yorubas is known for, but you find that such value, I think, is more like eroded Nobody cares how you make your wealth. Nobody even cares. Unlike in those days when you come home with something that is not yours, and the family then, it's not even only the family, but the society, the community. We were raised by the society. We were raised by the people in the community, not just by our father or our mother. So that extended role that the community play in our lives, I think we have to probably come back to see how we can restrict our steps back to the early days. And that's our moral values. We have to, because when we don't have the right moral values, I think everything will be disjointed. And that's what we are also doing at Peace Initiative Network, trying to see how we could work with young people, the elderly, government, and because we know we have to be together to do it, and government alone cannot do it. We have to be all inclusive in our efforts.
Okay, I'll still stay with you, Dr. Shodipo, and talk about the diversity in approach or approaches that the Peace Network has been using. I know that is why you are partnering with others to ensure that we have a peaceful society or peaceful nations. Now, if these diverse approaches are working, why are we still preaching peace at this moment? If these approaches from the Europe is working, why are they still at war? If it is working in Africa, why is there no total development that we want to see? So diverse approaches, are they working? Are they yielding to your own expectation?
Peace is a process. It's not a destination. And it's something we have to be doing every day on a daily basis. And all of us must be included. Not only the government, but even the people. We have to our role to play, even as individuals. Our role as community leaders, our role as women leaders, as youth leaders, leaders of government. So everybody must have a role, and it must be clearly spelled out that yes, this is what we do. And even at the global level, that's why we have at the UN, the Committee of Nations, where we all come together to see, okay, how can we promote peace? Because it's not enough to say, okay, we have peace, but it must be also backed with justice, fairness. Without fairness, there will be no justice. And that's why even at the UN level, the so-called five, the big five, that have vetoes and reserve powers, I think there's need for us to look at the reality we have on ground now. The reality of 1945 of the big five, I think, is also being eroded. So there's need to also have, like the Africa that we have, no member of Africa in the permanent and reserve seat of the Security Council. So there's need to open up the space if we really want to have peace in our community. So it starts from even at the national level, international level. Policy must be very deliberate to talk about peace. If we are it's just rhetoric, if we just like maybe lip service when we are not committed indeed to peace.
Okay, Martin, I'm asking this question because I know that individual approach it will rub off sometimes when you're going to broker peace with someone, or you want to approach how you see things, the perspective will be different. So individuality in this approach of bringing peace for development's sake, should it be used or should be put aside when you are coming out to bring up peace? Development is the basis of all this peace that we are talking about. So individual, does it rub off on the approach that an organization has?
It does. I mean, to go back to Dr. Michael, actually, somebody once said to me the kind of price of peace is eternal vigilance. So I think it's a constant process. From an individual level, and I suppose this is where community comes in. So our work is successful because we have trusted relationships, because people come to us when they're struggling, people come to us when they want to broker peace in a community, people come to us when there's a problem just about to escalate. And actually you can do that individually, you can bring families together, you can sit people down, because we provide trusted, safe spaces and trusted, safe relationships that allow those conversations to take place. And again, I think because peace is so demanding and it needs so much work, you have to operate at individual level, family level, community level, state level, national level, world level. And all those things need to be interlocked, otherwise you end up missing a step and start to create division again.
Okay, firstly, let's talk about the indices now of growth when it comes to peace. Do we have in let's look at the world now, the nations now. Is there anything that is showing that the peaceful coexistence is something that we can talk about, or we should be worried about that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So the data and the statistics that we have now do show us that peace is possible. While there is increasing conflict around the world and conflict-related deaths, what we find is that at the urban level, it's possible to achieve a reduction of violent death and achieve a reduction of violence. And this is why we've been talking about the integration between the local level all the way up to the global level. Many of us that a vast majority of violent death around the world does occur within cities and outside of conflict zones, in cities that would otherwise be considered at peace. And so as we're thinking about where we need to focus violence reduction, this is why the strategies of working with youth, how we can work together at these local levels, it really, really matters because it contributes to the global objectives for peace as well. And that's what our data and statistics show us as well.
Okay, when we talk about global peace, definitely economic development, human rights cannot be overlooked. And you know, poverty is one of the things that is ravaging almost all developing countries, you know. So now, does poverty make conflicts inevitable? That's to Dr. Shodipo first. And how do we break that cycle?
Well, I think the issue of poverty or lack of want or need, I think is also a very big factor in our own system here. Because I mean, when I mean system, I mean in Africa or in Nigeria, it played a role. And that's why there's need for both government, civil society to come together to see how we could also leverage on what we have. We have the youth, the populations, and to see how we can also elevate to make a policy that will be youth-friendly, that will be pro-poor, and not just probably looking at what we do mainly in Peace Initiative Network at our groups. At our own level, we look at youth and women empowerment, and we go out to see that, to identify what are the needs, what are the role of empowerment, vocational skills. And after giving them the skills, we also provide tools to start a small-scale business. Because we know an hungry man or woman is an angry person. So when you are okay and there's no, like the Yoruba will say, so you have to know that yes, with that, I think that's also something that can also, because it's only when it takes you to be okay for you to even reason well. Take you to have food, to have your stomach to be for you to even cooperate and do things. So we have to both government and the civil society and the even international community. I know we have a lot of roles played by people like the Peace in our cities, trying to support the local communities and to see how things are done. But there's need for also the community to also to be more cooperative. To see that yes, there's need for us to have things that will make us work well and do things better. And the role of even children, we have to see that the young ones we have to cater for. There's need for them to have the right to education is a right that must be is a key issue. There's need, because if we have population that are not educated and are not don't have the right knowledge to pursue things, I think the peace we all look at for will be elusive. So there's need to have every hands on deck, both government and individuals, cooperation, and the level of trust. We also have to build trust, because without trust, there's nothing can be done. So we have to see how both government and the civil society and other segments of society coming together to see this as a challenge, because until we identify what we have as poverty or lack of want as a challenge, we will not be able to tackle that. So we have to identify and then tackle it head on, and to see how things are done normal.
Okay, Martin, let's talk about the importance of human rights and freedom of speech for global peace. What are their importance? Are there space for people to express themselves when we talk about global peace? You know, these days we see people being afraid to talk, to say their mind because of so many things that could come up after. So let's discuss that.
Yes is the answer. People should be able to talk. People should be able to express opinions. We live in a society where we should be entitled to, without attacking somebody else, express a view and have grown-up conversations, and we're allowed to disagree. I think sometimes we forget that people can have different viewpoints and we're allowed to express those viewpoints and still find alignment, still come together about what the best way is forward. Agreement isn't necessary, but alignment I think is. And I do feel it's important that people are allowed to, because if we don't say how we feel, we're not allowed to express opinions, then what we do is create bigger and bigger division. And sometimes you need to understand how somebody else sees the position and start to adjust your position in order to create some kind of peace, some kind of equity, some kind of understanding.
All right, my next question, Cassie, let's talk about the sanction of other countries to promote peace. Does that really work?
So again, we're mostly here in the context of working with cities locally, right? And cities aren't usually in charge of how sanction decisions are made. I think sometimes their business sectors might have an influence in that if they have connections to the power at the national level. But when we get into sanctions, I think there's some mixed research about their how well they work. And I think some people like to espouse about targeted sanctions, but I think we always need to remember that if you're affecting another economy directly, you are typically affecting the people within that location and not those in power who are making the decisions about this. And so usually when we're talking about sanctions, we're talking about a willingness of suffering, and that should not be held by those that have to experience it. They should not have to experience a rising cost of food. They should not have to experience more insecurity because of decisions by other national governments. And I think what happens at a city level is often then cities have, and then people who work with youth have to address the additional onset issues that come from sanctions from another country. And they should also not have to address that, but they do. In short.
Okay. Last question for me for now, Dr. Shodipo. Now, when we talk about the role of ECOWAS, AU, the UN, and the rest, the role they are playing now, can you say, is really preventing war in Africa?
So as it is, the UN from 1945 set out to promote peace, global peace. But how far is that peace? Are we more safe or more peaceful now or compared to 1945? I think I would say the role nation plays, coming down to the imparity even in the setup of the system, where we have some that are with reserve and veto powers that could also upturn all the decision made at the plenary. And then when we have only the 5 nations that can also decide what happens globally. I think there's need to open up the system. There's need to have more nations coming especially to the United Nations General Assembly, and then even to the Security Council. The 5, we have the big 5, with those powers in 1945. It is not the reality now. The reality we have on ground now is something that has to be open. Let's have more nations coming and more people to decide, not just for the 5. And we also have to look at, even in Africa, do we have issue of resources? I think the resources is also one of the key. Even at the UN level, do they have resources to execute all their programs? Because these are things that we have to look at for. And who are the funders who contribute to the workings, to the day-to-day ruling and working of United Nations? And we find that just few nations that have and you pay the
pipers dictate the
tune, and that's why we have that nations that cannot even contribute, maybe even their annual subscriptions. How can you have a say at the table? So they need to open up the space and to see how things are done. At the ECOWAS level, we have the region in Sahel, where we have almost military takeover, and then so it's something we have to look at for. Is democracy? Is it working? It's something we have to look at for our own democracy, looking inward to African way of life and then African way of democracy. And so I think these are the things we have to look at for and to see how things are done. And I will also go back to the traditional institutions that have the role, very key role in the early days of our nation building. And we need to go back to give our rulers, traditional rulers, more power, because these are where they live with the community, they know who is the community, and they should be given more role to play.
Okay, Martin, I will start with Martin now and talk about, the peculiarities when it comes to each continent, each region, when we talk about peace or the how you relate with yourselves. Now, these peculiarities from the continent, from the regions, how do we balance it? We are interconnected globally. The nations, this nation who affect this nation when it comes to economy, when it comes to innovation, we sell innovations to ourselves, and globally things work. Seeing the 21st century can be in Africa and work for people in Europe. You can send goods from Europe to Africa and get your money almost instantly. So if there is an absence of peace, all these initiatives, innovations might not continue to work. So if you look at these peculiarities to continent, to region, how do we balance it for the peaceful global coexistence and development?
It's a good question. I'd say in some ways the three of us sat here are an example of how that works. So Peace in Our Cities are trying to bring different people together to share ideas. We're here to not only learn from Michael, but to understand if the programs we've built in Bristol could work with a trusted partner, which would be the Peace Initiative Network. So I keep going back to it, I suppose, but lots of these things are built on trust, mutual understanding, and a common way and a common understanding about how we want to achieve peace. So from my point of view, I couldn't set up what we do in Bristol here on my own. I have no cultural capital, I have no social capital. Okay. I don't understand the communities. Right. I have somebody here who does all those things and does an absolutely fabulous job. So we're developing a partnership where we're saying, well, actually, could this work together? What can we learn from you? What can you learn from us? What can we share? How can we affect communities, I don't know how many thousands of miles apart? And that, I suppose, is how you start to build that. Organisations and networks like Peace in Our Cities, the way that we're sharing, that's how you start to share ideas, build trust, and start to create that kind of global peace. But it has to be done through trusted relationships.
Okay, Kirsty, let's talk about the limitations that we have when it comes to comparing or using some strategies that are not peculiar to a region or a continent. Now, in Europe, you have to use a different strategy for the peaceful development there. In Africa, in Asia, you use something different. So how do we balance all the strategy to bring up a holistic way of ensuring that there's global peace in all nations?
Yeah. The short answer is through local ownership. Okay. So to the points that Martin was just raising, and this is a model across the Peace in Our Cities network, but really any action that's happening within a community is owned by that community. It's run by the people who understand the people and the relationships, they understand the nuances, and they know what the community needs. Oftentimes when we think about strategies that might be able to work, you can't just take one strategy and put it on top of a community. But what you can do, and what these two gentlemen are doing this week, is looking at other examples and learning from one another and sharing common challenges as well as also common solutions to work with the youth populations especially, but also to work across the community to see where there might be more empowerment opportunities, maybe more skills training, more job opportunities, working with local employers as well, and really thinking about the whole society and the whole ecosystem. As Martin mentioned, we couldn't possibly imagine that. He couldn't, I couldn't, coming into Abeokuta, but Michael can. Dr. Michael
Yeah.
can. And for those of you in your communities, you can as well. And so the inclusion, involvement, having people who care about their community, who talk with one another, who listen carefully, that all is very critical and crucial. What we can do is we can bring in research and studies on efforts that have been tried before, so that if there's lessons about, what not to replicate, where there might have been accidental harm in strategies that were chosen, or where there's maybe a really interesting potential solution, that those things could be taken forward into the next application, but again, through the lens of local ownership.
Okay, talking about local ownership, Dr. Shodipo, do you think reorientation of people about peaceful development or coexistence is necessary at this point? At this 21st century, we believe people should be educated enough about peace and the component that comes with having a peaceful development. But with what is happening, we can see that some people, let me put it that way, some people do not really mind as far as it is giving them their own benefit. They'll go all out to destroy other people's peace. So how do we reorientate people about peace and its genuine meaning?
Well, I think the need for local engagement cannot be overemphasized, and that's why we are here this week, bringing our colleagues from Bristol and then the partner from Peace in our city to see how we could also learn. It's a learning and sharing experience, peer-to-peer learning, what is happening in Abeokuta, and how can we also translate what we learn from it from our visitors coming from Bristol. The city of Abeokuta and Bristol now coming together on an exchange to see how we could also take it further, looking at our local similarities, what we have in common, how can we take it further. And there's need for local ownership is very key. There's need for everyone to be involved in development. There's need for the youth, the women, the government, and that's what we've been doing in the past few days, reaching out to all the stakeholders. We were with the Alake 3 days ago. Yesterday we were with Baba Obasanjo, and you can see these are all the things we do that we also see. Very soon now we also have there'll be programs in place that will share what is happening in Bristol, what is happening in Abeokuta, how can we learn, and that's what Peace in our city is doing. We have, as Pastor said, we have more than 60 countries and 60 members from various counties and mayors and civil society. And how can they take ownership? Ownership in the sense that it's not just to participate as project implementers, but taking ownership of your programs, because we are the locals. We are the locals, and we know the issues, and we need to provide the local solutions to our needs, to our realities, and not probably relying on probably project coming from either from London or from the US, but learning, and that's what we do in Peace in our cities. We don't just it's not a servant master relationship. It's a peer-to-peer learning where we learn, we share, and then we also engage with trust, with respect, and that's what we want to see also in our communities, that we can have both the youth coming together with elderly to talk about peace, to see how we could design things that can work for everyone in the society, not leaving anyone behind. The children, the youth, the women coming together to talk about peace, and not to probably rely on whether foreign, but we are the locals. We know what is happening here in the communities, and we can provide solutions to our local realities and what we have on the ground. And the only support we need, just like we need from Peace in our city, is to see and how they can also facilitate all these exchanges, and to see how we could also learn more on how we do things. And this is what we have been doing for the past 7 years. Peace in our city was formed in 2019, and it's growing. And we what we intend to see how we could also because the city is a major center in our existing, and if there's no peace in our cities, there's no peace in the nation.
Okay, Dr. Shodipo, before you go, let's talk about the derivables, especially in the value chain of peaceful development. A lot of people do not know that there are values embedded in having somewhere cool and calm for them to develop themselves. But if they hear it from people who have seen how it works, how conflict destroys, how peace is helping, I think they will have a change of mind. So what derivable do we have in having a peaceful development across globes, across the nations? We are not limiting it to Africa, because they see Africa as a developing country that really needs the peace. But other developed countries also need peace. So what derivable do we really need in our lives these days?
We have to look at fair relationships. Fair relationships, even fair trade. There's need for even fair trade, because when you don't have fair trade, where Africa or other nations are just producers of raw materials and not even the industry that produce the real goods. So there's need for development. And without peace, there will be no meaningful development. And that's why it's also very important that we should also strive to make sure that we maintain peace in our communities and maintain peace in our nations and even globally. Like the issue we have in mentioned Sahel, and even in Nigeria, the Boko Harams over the years and banditry, we could see the trend, even the trend now coming from the north to the south. Let us even look at how it's something that we see as if terrorism cannot even occur in Nigeria, say 20 years ago. We look at it as if something in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, but now it's here at home. So what do we do to prevent and to also make sure that we don't have at least total anarchy or chaos in our land? There's need for engagement, there's need for more cooperation, and there's need to build trust among all segments of society. And that's like what is happening now, even in the Southwest. We see the influx of the bandits coming to school to pick our children and to kidnap our women. These are the things that all hands must be on deck, and to make sure that we don't have occurrence of what we have in the north. And we should not look at what is happening in the north as, okay, well, it's all happening in the north, we are not concerned. But we can see that what is happening in the north is affecting us here. So that is why the issues in Nigeria that affect one affect all. And that's what the United Nations and even the ECOWAS are also trying to do, to make sure that we have these, that is cooperation among nations, cooperation among even individuals and societies and cities to see how things can be done.
Okay. Because of our time, let me just quickly ask this: that the peace strategy that you've been preaching, as a coordinator of Peace Initiative Network, has it been working so far? What measure can you say that it's been working?
What I would say is that we are playing our role, and what everyone should come on board, and that's what we are trying to do, to see how we can recruit more, because we can't do it alone, and there's need to engage the youth, even governments, to have this relationship with government. So we should not see ourselves as we and they and them. Government should not see civil society as enemies, but as friends, as allies that will contribute to meaningful development. And there's need for cooperation and to build trust, because without trust, government and civil society cannot work. And that's what we've been doing over the years, working with government officials. Like I'll give you the instance of the counterterrorism national action plan designed by the Office of the National Security Advisor. We were also part of it. We are the Partnership Against Violent Extremism and the PAVE network, the civil society element that also contribute to what they call the non-kinetic approach, the soft approach to not only just maybe using military alone cannot do that, but we have to have the soft approach, and that's what we member of Peace Partnership Against Violent Extremism provide. And the Office of the National Security Advisor about 12 years ago saw that the need to involve even the civil society, and we were called to form to alliance with government. In Ogun State, we also have the Office of the Security Advisor to the Governor, AIG Oluchala Subel, who has also been a very good ally to what we do in the state, working with us and to see how we could also design programs that will work to our local realities, the issue of cultism in our land, the issue of youth gangs, and the issue of even land grabbing, and what we have, the issue surrounding land and farmer herders conflict. The Office of the National Office of the Special Advisor to the Governor on Security has been a very helpful office where we can reach out to and we can also work to. Not to forget even the other ministries, other departments, the youth ministries, the women office, and then also the traditional rulers. So these are things we do. We work together to see how things can be done. I think for the first time we will find where government and civil society coming together to work hand in hand through PIF network. And this is so far we have about 23 states. Ogun State is one of the active states where we have the civil society working on governance, human rights, issues that have to do with women and youth, coming together to support government to see how we can also talk about the issue of that has to do with our communities.
So, okay, Matthew, let's talk about your message of hope now and to promoting global peace. I think that message is necessary now, and people need to hear that and know that peace is the way to go. So your message.
I think you might have summed it up. Peace is the way to go. We need to talk, we need to create equity, we need to create opportunity, we need to see the world from other people's perspectives. Communities are a great place to create trust, they're a great place to build peace. Community organisations, I believe, should be seen as an integral part of any city's infrastructure. If we want to make a city safer, we need to invest in those organisations that make the biggest difference at community level.
All right, Leslie, your own message, especially when it comes to promoting it from the family level and the women angle. What do you think women, what should be their role? How should they play it?
Anything they want to be, and any role that they see as a need in their communities. Oftentimes, if we want to know and understand what's happening within a community, all you have to do is talk to the women. The women and the caretakers that hold the stories. And we have stories of peace, and oftentimes we need to be telling them more as women, but as all people, because we can't just be speaking about how violence occurs, we have to also be speaking about how peace occurs. And so tell your stories of peace, encourage that peace. I will say too that at the systems level, we were in Washington, D.C. at the World Bank Fragility Forum recently. There's a lot of talk about jobs and livelihoods as a source and path towards peace. And I would encourage us to still continue, and Peace in Our Cities and Peace Initiative Network and Empire Fighting Chants, I think, are also part of this, to continue to focus on what the community builders are doing within their communities, what the women are doing within their communities to build peace, to invest in that work, to listen to those community groups, to listen to cities, and to invest in peace. If we have the money to invest in war, we definitely have the money to invest in peace instead.
So what story do you have for people watching us about Abeokuta? Oh,
we've learned so much. What a joy it's been. I think to see how many different layers of governance, but also community building are working together, to see the leadership that's here and present. I'm very charmed by being here in Abeokuta and learning about its role as an older brother in the region too. But I'm sure my colleagues have more to share too.
Okay, Martin, so what fascinates you about Abeokuta? I know that culture should be part of it.
Culture, yeah, although as Michael knows, I've struggled with the spice levels in Nigeria. English spice, Nigerian spice, they're different things. I think, people are people. And we did a session yesterday with some of the youth, and the joy, the smile, the laughter, it kind of reminds me of everywhere else where people just come together. I think the work that Dr. Michael and the Peace Initiative Network are doing is phenomenal. I've seen examples of work they're doing. We've met different officials and the respect and the high regard they're held. So I've left here a big fan of the city, and hopefully I shall come back.
Okay, we'll be waiting for you. Want to thank you for coming on the program and speaking about promoting global peace. Thank you, Kesley. Thank you, Martin. And thank you so much, Dr. Sholikbo, for bringing them to Abeokuta City to understudy and also take something home to their people and talk glowingly about Nigeria. Thank you for the work you do. Though it's all we have to leave.
Of course, we have to go. Okay, I think that will just be the size of the New Dawn today. Join our colleague on Friday for more, because I believe that today you've learned about peace, and now you can start within your community. Be part of peace, do not be part of conflicts. Doyin Sola Ogunbadewa is my name. See you next time.